I don't talk about this as much as 10 years ago a version of me thought that I would eventually, I bet, but my early research started with looking at abuse, norms, identity formation, narcissism, and codependency because of the abuse and the violence that I had lived up until that point. I was deep in the theory. I have spent my whole life looking at self-help, psychology, philosophy, existentialism, everything that you can imagine. And then 10 years ago, I dove headfirst into abusive relationships because I needed to make sense of especially one particular abusive dynamic that had played out for me over the last 4 years, which enabled me to leave that dynamic. So this is to say, when I'm seeing folks that have been, mainlining pop psychology about narcissism and being an empath and whatnot, I'm a hyper empathetic autistic person. I assure you, it is not with any sort of malice when I'm like, not everyone's a narcissist. The vast majority of people that I have experienced abuse from have not been narcissists. They've just been everyday people who play out abusive cycles. It is very, very important that we don't go around describing everyone as if they're a narcissist or an empath or whatever. I can't stand the hyper focus on Carl Jung. Or fucking Alan, whatever the fuck his name was. It's we get it. We get it. It's a lot more complicated than that, though. Society's a lot more complicated than that. What I want people to know from my story is that abuse does not need to remain a prison. The stigma of autistic people and the stigma on hypoempathy, as opposed to hyperempathy, which is its own form of stigma, it has a lot of lessons to teach us. And yeah, many of us have a canon event that involves being wrapped up into a horribly abusive, codependent dynamic with someone that fits sociopathic tendencies and may or may not eventually get diagnosed as a sociopath. But the fact is that regardless of how your emotions are expressed, it is different from what you feel internally, and not everyone diagnosed with whatever cluster B personality disorder is going to be violent. And it is very, very important that we don't act like everyone's a fucking narcissist and everyone's just gonna go on to be a serial killer. Because obviously these cultures of fear that we exist within, the massive industry of the serial killer docu-series complex, it has a lot to gain, as do the pop psychology industries, to have you believe that that's the case. It's not the case. Society is both beautiful and horrific simultaneously all the time. Do not lose hope in humanity. No matter how much hatred you see, there is always coexisting beauty.